Welcome to Yachting International Radio. You're with Karine from the Crew Coach on Your Mental Health. I have a beautiful guest with me today, Sarah. And Sarah and I have known each other, I would say, for 2 years now, Sarah,
Yeah.
just over. So I know you reached out and contacted me, and from memory, I think it's with regards to your age and going into the super yacht industry. Now, I don't know if you had asked me that question prior to do your training or afterwards, but I remember saying to you, well, it's a very superficial industry, but I would still go and do your best and persevere. And I think you've got that innate resilience within you. And you did eventually get a job, but obviously the experience was what I expected, the pushbacks initially. And I think they made comments on your outfits and
the first, like when I first went into one of their agents, one of the girls actually said to my face, you won't get a job, you're too old. And I had a job within 2.5 weeks of arriving in Antibes, and there was kids there, hot young things who had spent 2 months trying. So I was happy with that result and felt quite proud of that, actually.
Yes, that was brilliant. Yeah. And I think that just teaches you not to give up. And I think there's a lot of youngsters who are back at home and they want to give the industry a go. But I even had a 28-year-old ask me the other day, am I too old?
Oh no, my goodness. No. I mean, I think there's a boat for everyone. And also people see the value in your life experience at times. Not everyone is closed-minded to that and, shallow.
Yes. So yeah, well done for getting a job so quickly. And it's been, I feel so honored to have continued that friendship and connection over the past 2 years. And I must say it's been quite a roller coaster for you, unfortunately.
The last 7 months sure have, yeah, that's for sure.
So for the listeners that don't know, Sarah lost her son Danny to a car accident, and that was at the beginning of the year, and you were in Thailand at the time.
Yes, yeah, it was in November at the end of the year last year, and I was in Thailand. I'd just done my diving course and I was with a friend. We were doing some coral replanting in Maya Bay in Koh Phi Phi, and so I couldn't really have been a lot further from civilization when we got the phone call. So that's the biggest nightmare moment of my life, and the second biggest was letting his brother know.
Wow.
And then that flight home, knowing what I was coming back to.
Awful. I've got goosebumps. It's terrible.
I'm good today. Some days I can't say that without crying still. So, but today I can get through that. Yeah. Good thing for you.
Well, just to let you know, it's okay. I've had many of you burst into tears and didn't expect it. I interviewed a gentleman who lost his son to suicide. And he was
I saw that.
life, and coping with that is very difficult.
Oh,
to lose anyone, someone who's close to you is not easy. But
there's no getting over it. People make that one day you'll get over it, but you don't. You just learn to ride the roller coaster, and the waves get a little bit further apart. And some days are better than others.
Yeah, and I think it's accepting that and not, waiting for it to all be over. It doesn't work that way. And
you have to accept it and accept that life will always be a little bit less, and learn ways to deal with that.
Yeah.
And I think because resilience has always been something I've been interested in my nursing training and life experience in general, I think I maybe had some tools in place to watch what I was doing and what everyone around me was doing to deal with that. It's not always easy to apply it when it's yourself, having said that.
No. So maybe you can share a little bit before we start, where you're going to share your experience so far, but those tools, what were you noticing and what were you implementing?
One of the main things I kept telling myself is that there's no right or wrong way to do this. And I also really focused on trying to find some little positive thing each day, even if it was a walk along the beach or phoning up a friend and bawling my eyes out to them, and that was okay. Or putting on some videos of Dan doing dumbass things and having a laugh at it. Just trying to find a little positive in each day, and knowing that that might not always be possible, and that was okay too. Yeah, I think people want you to put a time frame on things, and there's no time frame on any of this, and everyone copes differently. That's the other thing, you know, one or two family members kind of are struggling in a wallowy kind of way, whereas I'm a pick you up, positive, kind of kick myself in the butt, move on person. So I kind of make myself do things, get up and go for a walk, or go help a friend move house, or, you know, do something positive with each day. Sometimes you don't feel like doing that, and you do just sit in your dressing gown and probably drink too many wines or whatever and just sulk. But that's okay too. Write lists. I write lists of everything, because one of the things I've really noticed through this, and I mean, I've known it from a nursing perspective in my head, I knew that this could happen, but physically experiencing the complete loss of physical and mental strength just blew my mind. Completely blew my mind. I was climbing out of the water with dive tanks on my back one day, and the next day I could barely get up the stairs in my parents' house. It was bizarre. It's so physical. Physical.
So with the brain and trauma, are you able to share some insight on what happens to the brain?
I have found that my memory is just disappeared on me. It's coming right, obviously, but in those first sort of weeks and couple of months, if I didn't write something down, or even just getting my phone notepad about it and going to type in what I wanted to remember, I'd forgotten it by the time I got the phone open, you know, and I'd have to say to someone, I've forgotten already, tell me what we just decided. It's just mind-blowing how quickly your brain can just kind of like shut it down, put up all these protective walls to stop you doing stuff and make you just deal with what's right in front of you. I think it's a natural coping mechanism for extreme situations like that.
Yeah,
it's the most awful thing that can happen to a person, I think, is losing a child.
yes.
I mean, any of us would swap places. Any of my family older than Danny would have swapped places within in a second.
Yes, absolutely. So what happened, and where are you now?
I'm currently in Ohopi, which is near Whakatane on the east coast of New Zealand, and this is the home that my sons and I brought together 2.5 years ago, having all kind of headed up this way and fallen in love with the area, which is just sun, sea and bush and bird life, basically. It's beautiful. And Danny was working locally for a really lovely family business called Whakatane Fencing. He called it Fun Fencing. And they did fencing and decking, basically, mostly, and doors, garage doors, that kind of thing. And he was on his way to work, minding his own business, doing 76 k's an hour, like not even the speed limit. And he'd been running late because he forgot his sunnies, turned around, came home, went back on the road. So you kind of do those what ifs.
Yes, I was just
thinking, been in that place at that time, but you can't kill yourself with that stuff. And this lass, she was by no means her first offence in a car or with drugs. She was on voluntary disqualification for that and shouldn't have been driving for that reason for a start. She was also on a learner's licence and should not have had passengers in her car, which she had two. And she was driving under the influence of meth, and she also had cannabis in the system, but of course you can't tell if that was conducive to the situation or not. But the meth definitely was. And just not paying attention, lost control of the car, and my baby happened to be in the way. And her car went right into his driver's side, and the lady who was in front of him saw the whole thing in her rearview mirror. And she stopped and was first to him, couldn't get the door open of his driver's side, it was smashed in. And she leaned through the broken window and was holding his hand and talking to him, patting his hair. He's got crazy hair, like it's not long, it's straight like mine, but it's like African hair, you know, like tight curls, white and all over the show. It's wild. And she said he was unconscious straight away, and he never responded at all. which
Mm.
I find that helps my peace of mind to know that he wasn't suffering in that moment.
Yeah.
And he was unconscious all the time that the paramedics were working on him, and he never regained consciousness, and he died at the scene before they could
Oh,
even get him in the helicopter.
I'm so sorry.
So yeah, I guess I have seen the coroner's report. Being a nurse, I like to know rather than imagine what happened. So I do know the extent of his injuries, and they were massive: head, chest and abdominal trauma and broken bones and things.
Yeah.
So if he had survived that, he would have been brain injured permanently, and certainly not the Danny we knew, with massive
No.
physical disabilities as
Yeah.
well. So
Yes.
I wouldn't have wished that on him.
No. Yeah.
I went through a moment where I would have looked after him for the rest of my life. I just want him back.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No, I'm
in
sorry.
the end, I
Mm.
have to accept that it's better for him to be
Mm.
swimming with the whales somewhere in the ether than
Mm.
here
Mm.
with me, not able to walk and talk and laugh like he used to.
Yeah. Yeah. And that would be very hard. Very.
Mm,
So I know his send off was absolutely beautiful, and he was
yeah,
surrounded
pretty
by light
amazing.
and lots of flowers.
It
And
was amazing.
you decided to broadcast it, didn't you?
So we had 4 cameras in the crematorium like hall where we had it, because a lot of the family and friends are overseas, so they could all log in and come in and watch through that, and they said it was really good to be able to do that. His dad lives in England, so his dad and stepmom had to fly out. Matt, his brother, was in Lithuania when he died, so he had to fly back from there. Then his girlfriend was in Macau, China, so she had to fly from there, and I was of course in Thailand, so we were all overseas. My brother and sister, God bless them, came up here and looked after him, and flew him home to Christchurch where we had the funeral, and looked after him until we all arrived. And then we had him at my parents' place, with an open casket until everyone arrived. And a lot of the boys came in, said hi and bye, and had a few diesels with him and chatted and swapped stories and laughed. Matt
Mm.
never wanted to see him, which was fine. That's his choice. He didn't want to remember his brother in a coffin. He wants to remember him dancing at trance raves.
Mm.
And so, yeah, we decided to have bright colours because they loved the music festivals. Everyone had to wear bright colours. We had flowers everywhere. A friend of mum's grows gerberas, so they were all over the place.
Mm.
And we had big screens up with photos scrolling. And then I had a big box of crayons and felt tips, and everyone, it was a plain wood coffin, and everyone came up at the end of the ceremony and drew messages on it for him to go to send him on his way. So yeah, it was a pretty special send off. I think we did a good job.
Wow, that's beautiful. That gets me choked up, and I'm like, oh.
I've watched it a few times since, and I mean, it still makes me cry, but it also, like to see the support and love there also makes me feel good. So yeah, it was a good send off.
Yeah, so yeah.
Don't you start, you'll get me going.
Gosh. So
Yes.
your healing journey, obviously you had a choice to meet the family and
Yes.
the perpetrator and the justice system. I know working in the justice system that we had reconciliation as an option, and
Yes.
obviously both parties have to agree. So you thought that this would be good for you in terms of your healing process.
Yeah, it's there with the Youth Justice Court here with the Family Group Conference. They have to attend. So Hope and her whānau had to attend this. We did not have to, but if we hadn't, then the police and the Youth Justice Coordinator would have read our statements and still shown any videos or whatever that we wanted done. But I felt quite strongly that we should represent him. Like, it was such a, she'd broken the law in so many ways, so repeatedly, that I wanted to try and just do this one thing that might change how she lived her life. And if I could stop one more person having to go through what we've had to go through, then it would have been worth the discomfort it would have for me to front to her, because I didn't really want to see her and face up to her. But once I said I was going, quite a few members of the family decided that they would also make victim impact statements to be read out. And Danny's dad, Richard, and his wife decided they would come in by video conference from the UK as well. It was 3 a.m. for them, poor things.
Oh, gosh. So did they participate? So they shared as well a statement?
So, yeah. So my Danny's cousin had a statement read out. She lives in Australia. And Danny's, my brother and my sister, my brother came, he was here with his wife, so they both read out their statements, and my brother read out my sister's statement, and then the youth justice coordinator read out Danny's English grandparents' statement and his cousin's statement, and then Richard and Sarah, Danny's mum and father and stepmum, another Sarah, they read out theirs. And then I did mine last, but I felt because I was there and present, and it would be a good way to finish and have most impact on her if someone was actually there with the final statement. And Simon's mum, like, I raised him. I reckon I get the last word. And then we showed his girlfriend and Matt, his brother, reading their speech at the funeral, and some snapshots of the funeral, some video clips of the funeral. And then we finished with a Tim McGraw song, Humble and Kind, to which we had done a photo slideshow at the funeral. And that's, I don't know if you know that song, but it's got pretty moving lyrics. And they were kind of something Danny kind of lived by a bit. He was such a generous spirited soul and loving soul. He always used to say to everyone, don't forget to love each other. Or saying from our family, from me, was love you past the stars. And we always said those kinds of things to each other. And so I wanted her to see that. I wanted her to see a good family and a positive environment and what she should be doing with her life, not what she had been doing with her life.
So that experience, would you describe as cathartic?
Yes. I went into it thinking that she was going to be fairly nihilistic and that would hurt me to the core, but I was prepared to see that and cope with it in the small hope that it would change her. But in actual fact, over the last few weeks, I think, with her brain injury healing, she has come to a place where she sees that she was making poor life choices and not listening to anyone around her, and now understands the depth to which she's, well, there's words I could use, but really messed up. And she engaged, she met my eyes, like she looked to connect with me. She cried, the whole whānau cried, all her support people. She had some good support people around her. She has some health professionals and social work professionals in her whānau and wider family. And everyone was crying by the end, like the 2 police officers, the youth justice coordinator, her lawyer, everyone had red eyes. And I mean, all of us were quite literally bawling, but I think it really did make him a person to her, not just a name on a piece of paper, not just the boy she'd killed, not the young man she'd killed, but a person who she could see alive and see photos of and put a face and a personality to. And she seemed to care and to be remorseful, genuinely remorseful, and that made a huge difference to me. I don't really know why, to be honest, because it doesn't bring Danny back, but it does make me feel better to think that she might have learned from it and won't do it again. And that's all I could ask, really, was that it won't happen again.
And are you privy to being able to follow her journey into the future, whether she would make changes in her life or anything like that, or once?
Um, Legally, I get to know if she keeps in place the consequences that the court imposes on her. But the feeling I'm getting from her whānau is that they intend to hold her to account as well. And I think that if I asked to be kept informed, then they would do that. They have voluntarily offered a couple of things to me as not exactly compensation, but as gestures of sorrow and goodwill. And I found that helpful, I guess, to think that they were trying to make some way of showing me their sorrow. They actually apologized for not getting her under control, and they said they felt they let us down by not doing that as well, which I found
Oh,
quite big.
okay. So for the people that don't understand, it's a Maori tribe, right?
So if the whānau in iwi is the Maori wider family and community.
Okay.
Your whānau is your more immediate family, your hapu is your wider family, and the iwi are the tribe to which you belong.
Okay.
And so they do things often as a group, and hold people to account as a group. And for her sentencing, that's going to be held at the Wairaka Marae,
Mm,
and that's local here in Whakatane.
mm,
And all the kaumatua, which are the elders of the tribe, will be there, and that's quite confronting for her to face all the elders of her iwi. And also the court judge and, the normal legal system people
okay.
will be there, and I'm going to be there as well.
Wow. So with the tribe, and I don't know if this is the closer the immediate family, but when they said, "Look, we wish we should have done something more." So does that mean they understood the drug use
Yes.
in that
Yeah.
family? And
Yeah.
well, what
Yeah.
could they have done more? Like, how could they intervene?
Well, that's right. I mean, it's difficult to know because from what I understand, some of them had tried, and I believe her dad had tried very hard um,
Mm,
to help her. But there's only so much you can do when a young person doesn't want to be told or helped.
mm,
I mean, she was on voluntary disqualification from driving, and she still got in that car that morning with two friends and drove. So I'm a little bit forgiving about that side of it, because I think there's only so much you can do when kids decide to go off the rails and are really determined to be little buggers. But
mm,
the fact that they expressed that they wish they had done more or stepped in some way
mm.
meant a lot to me.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so I found that kind of helpful for my peace of mind, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And to think that they would step on that more in the future and make sure that she did get all the help and support she needs going forward.
Yes. And I think that's important because, as you said in the beginning, is that you want, not this to happen to anyone else.
Yeah, and that's my own real motivating factor, because none of it brings Danny back. But giving myself the nursing pep talk, relax your shoulders, Sarah, relax your shoulders.
Mm,
Um, but
mm,
yeah, I think it was important to try and do it for other people, not just for me. So
mm, mm. So, I mean, all I can say is I'm sorry, and that is just so awful. And if I could do anything well, I think, you know, all his family and loved ones would do anything to have Danny back. And
yeah,
I think this just highlights, substance abuse and being irresponsible and not thinking about the wider impact that your behavior
yeah,
can have on others. And
yeah,
we've discussed before that there is substance abuse in our industry in yachting, cocaine,
mm,
and I
mm,
hear of coke boats, and
mhm,
I hear of
mm,
people with rank who are using. and driving a yacht. And
Yeah.
what would your message be to those who are being responsible and are being quite selfish and not thinking about the consequences of their actions?
You know what? Just don't. You have to live with that. If your recklessness and selfishness basically
Mm.
leads to someone else's injury or death, you have to live with that. And their whole family has to live with that loss, and it's devastating. You know, I still can't really imagine
Mm.
living without two boys. It's not fair. Just
Mm.
don't friggin' do it.
Mm.
All my boats I've worked on, and even on my own private yachts, if the pick is up or the lines are off, we don't drink, don't use anything.
Mm.
Okay, when you've got your pick down and you set your anchor watch and you know you're relatively safe, then okay, have a glass of wine or whatever. Don't get drunk. You can fall over the side and drown yourself. Like this,
Yeah.
water boats and alcohol and drugs do not mix. They don't.
Yes. Yes. And that,
Um,
yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's actually a very good statement and point to make about safety and drinking. And maybe it's just having that very clear boundaries that you just don't pick up. And you think of crew members in the past year that I've heard of who have returned drunk, they've missed a step and they've gone straight into the water
yeah.
and drowned.
Mm.
Crew girl in Italy, she was coming down the stairs to the crew mess, she slipped, she broke her neck, she died.
Oh.
So
It's boats are an accident waiting to happen at the best of times. And I mean, we all push the boundaries at times and make mistakes and things. But if you're using drugs and getting really hammered, it really is just one of these days you're gonna you're gonna pay for that in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, have fun, go and drink, but just don't get so plastered you don't know who you are and where you are and what you're doing,
yes,
and can't be responsible for your own safety.
no, yes. Ah, um, thank you, Sarah, so much for sharing your story. And I think that it will make a massive impact. And I think someone will listen to this message, whether that resonates with them in some way and they make a change, or they learn a way to cope with their grief, or they can help someone else. I think this is so powerful.
I think too, like it's easy when you're traveling to get caught up in what you're doing and forget to call home.
Mm.
So, you know, to all the ones who are out there, and even if you don't get on that well with your mum and dad at the moment and think they're a pain in the ass, just pick up the phone and call them and give them that face-to-face from time to time, even if it's only a few minutes. Or if you do get a chance to get off your boat and go and stay with family or siblings who are in the area, just do it. Danny was in Athens last year with his brother in August after the Tomorrowland Festival, and our owners on our boat were at home. We had no one on the boat, and I begged my captain to be allowed to fly and meet them for 3 or 4 days. We were doing nothing that week, and he wouldn't give me leave, and that would have been the last time I saw my boy. As it is, I hadn't seen him since the beginning of the season, so 31st of March last year was the last time I saw him.
31st
So take
last
those
year.
opportunities.
Yeah, long
So I
time.
hadn't seen him for so long, and now I know. Now I won't.
Mm. Mm.
So if you get the chance, go see your family. Pick
Mm.
up the phone.
Ah,
Life's short.
it is. It is very short, and yeah, you must think back to that moment when the captain said no, and I know that there's so many others out there that have been in your situation, and I know when there's even been funerals and they can't go to the funeral because of
Yeah.
the role that they play on board. And I think you can make anything happen. I mean, that's what we do for the owners and guests. We make
Yeah.
things happen. So why can't we look after our crew?
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, you know, my captain was great, and I enjoyed working on that boat, and we had a good working relationship and everything. But yeah, he just didn't want me to go just in case the boss came back. But
Yeah. Yes.
they could have got a day worker. You know, none of us are expendable. It's very humbling, but it's true.
Right. And are you planning to return to the industry?
Yes, I have. I'm leaving New Zealand on the 22nd of July, and I'm flying to Mexico to meet up with my friend on his yacht Momo in the Sev Cortez for a few months. And then I have, fingers crossed, that it all goes ahead, a job lined up in France at the end of September, permanent contract.
Oh,
So
fantastic. Yes. Okay.
I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, well, please stay in touch,
I
as you
will.
I know you do. And yeah, I wish you all the very best in your new adventures. And
Thank
my
you.
heart goes out to you. And if I could go through the screen and give you a big hug, I would.
Cyber hugs. Same to you, and thank you for all the work you do. I mean, it's amazing what you guys do, because there's not an awful lot of support out there for sailors, and it makes a difference.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much.